Welcome to Mindfulness, Living the Buddha Way. Today we are discussing embracing failure, the key to unlocking success. This episode explores the paralyzing effect of the fear of failure, drawing on Buddhist philosophy to reveal how this fear often manifests as a self-fulfilling prophecy. We discuss why failure is an essential teacher of humility and patience and offer practical mindset shifts to move from anxiety to action. Here's something that might surprise you. Research shows that 92% of our fears about failure never actually materialize, yet that fear holds back nearly half of all professionals from taking career-advancing risks.
That's such a striking statistic. And what's even more fascinating is how that fear actually rewires our brain chemistry, making us less capable of the very success we're trying to achieve.
Well, it's like this bizarre psychological trap we set for ourselves. The more we obsess about failing, the more mental bandwidth we waste on worry instead of preparation. I was reading about this fascinating study where they measured brain activity in people attempting complex tasks.
Oh, tell me more about what they discovered in that research.
So get this. When participants were told their performance would be heavily judged, their prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for creative problem solving, showed significantly reduced activity. It's like their brains literally went into survival mode instead of solution mode.
You know, that reminds me of something I observed in the tech startup world. Companies that operated from a place of fear consistently made worse strategic decisions than those that embraced experimentation.
Exactly right. And here's what's really interesting about that. The most successful companies actually have a higher failure rate than average ones, simply because they're willing to take more calculated risks. Like Amazon, did you know they lost millions on failed experiments like the Fire Phone?
But they also gave us AWS and Prime, which completely transformed entire industries.
That's precisely the point. Their willingness to fail led to their biggest innovations. And this connects to something fascinating in Buddhist philosophy about how our attachment to outcomes actually creates suffering.
Well, that's interesting. How does that Buddhist perspective apply to modern success and failure?
So the core idea is that our fear of failure isn't actually protecting us. It's like wearing a suit of armor that's so heavy it prevents us from moving forward. Studies show that entrepreneurs who adopt this mindset of detached engagement are more likely to persist through early setbacks.
That makes me think about how we're teaching the next generation about failure. Most education systems still penalize mistakes instead of treating them as learning opportunities.
You're hitting on something crucial there. Finland, which consistently ranks among the top education systems globally, actually encourages students to take risks and learn from mistakes rather than fear them. They celebrate a National Day for Failure on October 13th, an initiative started by students at Aalto University to promote resilience and entrepreneurship.
That's such a revolutionary approach to learning and development.
And the results speak for themselves. Finnish students show higher resilience, better problem-solving skills, and, here's the kicker, they actually achieve better outcomes because they're not paralyzed by the fear of failure.
So how do we actually start making this mindset shift in our own lives?
Well, it starts with what I call the failure-friendly framework. First, you identify what you're trying to achieve. Then, you map out potential failure points and create contingency plans. Most importantly, you define what you'll learn from each possible setback.
That's fascinating, because it transforms failure from this terrifying unknown into just another data point in your growth journey.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. When you track your response to setbacks over time, you start to see patterns. Maybe you notice that your biggest breakthroughs often come right after your biggest failures.
That reminds me of that famous Thomas Edison quote about finding 10,000 ways that didn't work.
Right. And what's often overlooked about Edison's approach was his systematic documentation of failures. He didn't just try and fail, he learned and adapted from each attempt. Modern research shows this methodical approach to failure increases innovation success rates.
That's such a powerful shift in perspective, from seeing failure as an endpoint to viewing it as a data point.
And here's what I think is the most important takeaway for our listeners. Start small. Pick one thing you've been avoiding because of fear, something where the stakes are low, but the potential for growth is high.
That makes perfect sense, building up our failure resilience like we would build any other skill.
Exactly. And remember, every time you feel that fear of failure creeping in, that's actually a signal you're pushing your boundaries and growing. It's not a warning sign, it's a growth indicator.
That's such an empowering way to reframe those uncomfortable feelings we all experience.
Well, here's my challenge to everyone listening. This week, document one thing you try that scares you, what you learned from it, and how you'll use that information moving forward. Because ultimately, the only real failure is letting fear keep you from trying at all. Thank you for spending these moments in mindfulness. If this reflection brought you a little calm, you can return whenever you need. Until next time, live gently.